Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Todd Menard, and today we're going over the White Mountain and surrounding area real estate market statistics for the week ending November 13th. And we're taking a look at the month end October 2025. Let's get right into our numbers. This past week, we had 106 days closed on market. We had a month supply at 12.7. Our absorption rate was at 7.87. Average list price this past week, 432,036. Average sale price this past week, 413,534. And our list price to sale price retention came in at 95.72. Looking at active inventory, down again to 921 available units. Pending is sitting at 31 and closed units month to date of November 29. Looking at new listings taken this past week, 39 units were taken, brings our days on market for active inventory to 128.6 and for closed at 106. Looking at the lower left-hand side, where we get to see two categories. We get to see the active inventory by price range, what's actually out there right now, and we get to see month-end October in the bottom, which shows, again, by price range, number of units in that price range, days on market for that specific price range, what percentage of the total closed units that price range represented, whether the units went up or down in that particular category or price range this past week or month, and the days on market for that category. So these can be used for a multitude of different ways. Number one, if someone's looking for a home in that category, that particular price range, or someone is selling a home, looking to sell a home in that particular price range. These are a lot more specific than the overall White Mountain MLS numbers. That being said, though, your numbers are the most important numbers. Real estate agent numbers are the most important numbers for a seller or a buyer, because you can pull the exact neighborhood and do the same searches. So if you'd like to know how to come up with the specific numbers that we talk about regularly, just give me a call and let me know, or email me, and I'd be happy to help you walk you through it. Taking a look at the spreadsheet, where everybody gets to be the expert. We have week over week analysis. We have the same period last year. Plus, we'll also go into the blue section in the second half of this, which will include the month end numbers for October, and also in comparison to last October and the prior months. So let's get right into it. 39 new listings taken this past week, 40 the week before, and 36 last year at the same time. So relatively commensurate with what the market was last year. Taking a look at active inventory at 921, we were at 952 the prior reporting period. We were at 981 last year, so we have a little bit less inventory than we had before. We're not really sure exactly what each of those categories are. We are unable to pull that data, but taking a look at the active inventory and what it is comprised of is the following. So of those 921 units, 3 are in the coming soon category, 74 condo townhomes, 5 factory built, 188 manufactured homes, 3 modular homes, 49 park units. We have 5 ranch and farms, 3 multifamily, and 597 site built, and 50 new home construction, totaling 921 total properties. And of those properties, 7 are REO and 1 is a short sale. So there was an increase of 1 additional unit in REO. And REO, real estate owned, really means bank owned. So they've already gone through the foreclosure process. They're not in the foreclosure process. These are homes that are actually owned by the bank. So you'll notice a little red tickers and green tickers tell you whether it actually went up or went down in each individual category. But the most important thing is that inventory is lower than it was last year. So taking a look at pending inventory, active inventory anyway. So taking a look at pending units, we're at 31, 35 last week. And again, remember, as units close, they're going to fall off of this, and then potentially new units will be added. So this goes up and down. Again, as I always say, we'll look at the month-end numbers. That's a much more stable number. These are very capricious, and they react kind of like a treasury note very, very quickly and multiple times a day. So 29 is though where we were last year, same week. Taking a look at closed units for the month to date of November, we're at 29. We were at 44 last year, so again, lagging just a little bit behind, but we're only midway through the month. And so we always know that in most instances, the majority of properties close the last week of every month. However, they do close obviously all throughout the month, but the last week is predominantly the most where the majority of the closings take place. So again, a little too early to make any decisions there. 12.7 months supply, that's down again from 18.49. I think the 18.49 last month was just a little bit, or last reporting period was just an anomaly, so to speak. But we've been averaging, typically somewhere in the 6 month supply range. So when it's a little bit higher like this, it's indicative of us moving into that winter season. Taking a look at the median sale price, we're at 335 of what sold and closed this past week, not went under escrow. 370 was where we were the week before. Slide rise a little bit further to the right. 360,000 is where we were at the end of last year, or at the same period last year. So again, we're looking, and again, this is only representative of that product that closed in the last week. So this isn't month to date. This is just what's happening right now. And that's what these numbers represent. And that can help you as you're preparing what's going on this week, so to speak. Are the numbers changing this week? Are we seeing a trend go in a new direction from last week to this week? When you see 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row and it's trending in the same, it's either reducing in inventory or increasing, or reducing in price or increasing. Those are things that give us indicators of what's going on as a trend before it actually happens. The last number here is the list price to sale price retention. We talk about this all the time ad nauseum. We're at 95.72. In other words, this past week, the sellers retained approximately 2.5% more of their list price than they did prior. They didn't give up as much. The discount from list price to contract price this past week was 95.72, or a 3.3% negotiation. Then we take a look at last week, we were at 93, so it came up a little bit. Last year, we were at 96.54, which meant there was only about a 2.5% negotiation. This, again, has nothing to do with the concessions that are built into the terms and conditions of the contract. It may, in other words, if you don't need concessions, then what if most people want? A reduction in price, buy the home for a better price. However, if they need concessions to help them close, then sometimes they're willing to allow, or not allow, but to not ask for as much of a discount off the list price to be able to position the seller where they'd be more interested in offering the concessions built into the terms than both. Some markets you get both, but that obviously is a buyer's market. We are not in that. So again, just something to take into consideration. Taking a look at let's go to the month end numbers over here on the top right hand side. So we're looking at right here in the middle, in this section, we're looking at 2025 October versus 24 October. And then we're also seeing our numbers. What are they, the difference between September and October? So we can see that when that seasonal trend take place and when it's taking place. So as of right now, month over month, we did approximately 7.8%, 7.7% less business, less new listings added to the marketplace than we did, the month before. We did 208 in the month of September, only 192. However, if we're looking at what does it reflect as last year's business, or compared to last year's business, we did only 176 new listings taken last year, and this year we were at 192. That's almost 10% more. Kudos. The sellers are still in the marketplace, still engaging, and engaging a little bit more than obviously they did last year. Taking a look at the active inventory, we were sitting at 1,025 on average last month versus 856 the year before. We had 1,126 average units, so you can see that decrease in about 9% is again indicative. It's commensurate. It's in line with what we do seasonally, and as that market shortens through the holidays, yes, and also through the winter. Again, 856 is where we were last year. So having 1,000 units, we had almost 20% more product available for people that were interested in purchasing something during this particular time. So that's a good sign. Taking a look at pending, we ended up with an average, of course, about 137 people in escrow at any one time versus 150 the year before. We use this to say, are there more buyers in the marketplace today than there was a year ago? The answer to that would be no, because a year ago we had an average of 150 in escrow and only 137 this past year. Again, looking at it month over month, rather, we were at 182, 209 the month before that, but 182 last month and 137. So what are we seeing? We're seeing the decline in the number of buyers in the marketplace because interest as the weather grows colder and people are not needing to escape the valley locations. There's less visibility, less eyeballs on property. Doesn't mean the market has to slow down. It just means it is slowing down, and that is seasonal. Looking at closed units, 181 is where we finished last month, up from 178, very so slightly, 1.7% increase in closings year over year. That 1.7 should have been in the green category. We did 182 last month. So again, and 189 the month before. So if you're looking at October versus September versus August, we've been averaging about 180 units each month. So although we take a look at what's taking place, we were 220 the year before, so down 15% in August. We can see we were down 4% in September year over year. But again, we were up in October. And the last thing to consider right here is that when we say we closed a property, sometimes they're the same month. They go into escrow the same month as they close. Certainly in cash transactions, that takes place, usually a 2-week, maybe 3-week closing, giving people just long enough to do a proper inspection period and then close it. Versus so we do take that into consideration, as well. But 181 is where we were, so that's a good sign because we actually closed a little bit more than we did last year, but it's consistent also. And the final sets of numbers, again, are relating in these categories. These statistical numbers relate to the whole month, where over here they only relate to what closed that particular week, or in reporting period we do by week. So in this situation, we averaged about a 5.66 month supply versus a 4.81 month supply. So when we're saying 4.8 to 5.6 doesn't sound like a very big difference in numbers, but it's 18% difference in the marketplace. So these are things that we have to take into consideration. The market was a little bit cooler than it was the month prior. We were at a 6.19, month before that, 6.07. So there was a little bit more activity in the marketplace at this particular, in the month of October. Let's look at the median price. Well, the median price for the whole month, so as we over here, we're talking about that capricious week over week change, but for the whole month, the median ended up at about 400,000 even. We were at 367,000 the month before, 389,000 the month before, so we went from 389 down to 367, up to 400. And again, this is a representation of not the overall market increasing or decreasing. This is only saying of the properties that closed in the entire month of October 2025, the median, that middle number, was 400,000. You can also, if you had interest, looking at the average numbers, but average numbers, are going to modify, which does affect the median. But the average number is not the important number. The median is really what we're looking for. Taking a look at the sold part, the days sold on the marketplace was 123 for the active inventory, 101 for closed. So again, what does this mean? Well, last month we were at 128,899, very similar number. 120 higher, 92. For the properties that closed. The first number, the top number, of course, is the active inventory. So we're taking a look at the difference here, and what we're seeing is the properties that closed in the month of October had been on the market about 100 days from the time they listed the property until the time that they went into pending. So we're looking at this, we're saying, okay, that now is the number. Is it similar? Yeah, 99, 92, a couple of months before. No alarm in this particular category. And then as far as looking at the total active, but it does say that what is selling is remember 4 months ago, this was 24, and it had been 24 all the way through the summer market. So what was really taking place then was those 24 meant 24 days on market was the average number of days for the properties that were closing. So in that particular situation, that means the new stuff is what's closing. The old stuff is still hanging around. It's kind of stale. They need to do something to make it, and I don't mean continue to discount the price. That's not always the case, but it does, but of course, you've got to do something to stimulate that market and help that property close. Most recently, what has been in the last 3 months anyway, the average of what has been median days on market has been 100. So again, this is closed inventory. So what we're basically saying in this particular regard is there's only about a 20-day difference in days on market for the properties that are going under escrow. So I would say that the difference, that 20 days, the properties that are at 123 right now or above, those are now the stigmatized properties. And the other, earlier in the summer, it was anything over a couple of weeks old was stigmatized. But right now it's slowed down, and yet properties are still selling. But they're just selling the older properties, the properties that have been on the market a little longer, not because less necessarily is coming on the market. We said 192 versus 208 versus 321 in August. So yeah, you've come away from those big listing months because we're in that winter market. 92.4. So this is saying on list price to sale price retention, the average seller last month gave up 7.6%. 7.6% discount from the current list price at the time they accepted the offer to the purchase price, meaning the price that was offered in the contract. A 6% negotiation is a lot of money. We look over here at 6.4, 7.6, actually not 7.6%. We did 7.7% the month before, 7.6%, 7.7% the month before that. So what are we basically seeing? We're seeing that sellers are having to give up almost 10%, 7.5% of their list price at the time the buyer submits the offer. There's another calculation you've heard me talk to. Instead of a list price to sale price, there's another one called original list price. So when the house came on the market, what was that number? So it would be good to take a look at original list price right now just to see what changed. Is it that the sellers started really, really high and now they're coming down because they realized, yeah, we started really, really high? Is it the market's not there, so they're incentivizing buyers they're accepting those lowball offers because the things are slowing down. Instead of having 300 homes added a month, we're only getting 200. Instead of having 250 by 209, 250 earlier months buyers, we now only have 137, almost half that market. So half of the buyers have basically gone away. So if they want to continue to sell those properties, there's got to be an incentive somewhere. And where it's hitting is right in the difference. So we're saying that of all the properties that sold last month, 7.5% discount was the average, which meant there were some that were less and some that were even more. But ultimately, that's what we're saying. So I'm going to finish up with these two, with this last slide, because I do this each month for you now. I compare where are we, month to date, year over year, and that's really what these are. These are year to date, so from January through today, through the end of, October 31st. And the same period before, what was the difference? Well, there's about a 16% increase in listings taken this past year. We're sitting at, so we've gone from 228 to 265. Active has gone from 764 to 920. So more properties listed, more properties active. That's up 20%. The pending, the number of buyers that are in the marketplace, 154 to 158, about a 2.75% more buyers in the marketplace than there were the year before. We're looking at closed inventory, closed product, 143 on average per month. Year to date, there's only been 1,427 properties that have, that have closed. year to date. So again, just understanding where we are in that cycle. Non-distressed properties coming in at about 96. So looking at the month supply, we were at a 6.55 versus 5. So we were a little more brisk. More things were selling. It's about a 32% increase. Average list price last year was 507. It's now 518, up 2.2. And what we're looking for here is, are we exceeding the typical appreciation of 4%? Most properties in Arizona, as a collective aggregate, are appreciating at approximately 4 to 4.5% per year, and that's a 30-year total that I've been recording for 30 years. But we're looking at it and saying, what's happening in the marketplace right now? So if they're not increasing, that means that people aren't building equity as fast because it's not going up by that 4% or greater. So we are seeing that the property, but again, this is reflective about the properties that have closed, listed and closed. So it's not all properties are stigmatized. It's just saying of the properties in 2024 that closed, all the properties that closed versus all the properties that closed in 2025 so far. There hasn't been an increase in more than 4% year over year. So we've already taken into consideration a 12-month period where normally 12 months later, the property would have gone up 4%, 4.5%. Days on market, so we're looking at 128. It's a little slower for the median days on market, 86. They're about the same, 85. And the list price to sale price retention, that number we talked about just a moment ago on the spreadsheet, 94 to 94. So what are we seeing? Overall, over the year of the entire year of 2024 and the year, well, I should say the month to October 31st of 2024 versus January 1st to October 31st of 2025, you're seeing the sale price to list price retention at 94%, which basically is meaning that there's been a 6%. It's easy to say. You got somebody, if I'm coming up there to buy a home and I'm a buyer and I know this number, I'm expecting a 6% discount. My offer is going to be a 6% discount because that's what the industry numbers say. If I'm selling, I need to not necessarily over list price my property, but I have to be prepared and understand that the average, so it's not all, every property is different. The average of all of the properties that have sold are averaging the same 6% discount than before. So I've got to prepare as a seller to give up 6% somehow. Maybe it's off just list price, which is what this is, but it may also mean that there may be some concessions, maybe not. Maybe the reason that these are called averages is because there's people that paid 100% for the property of the list price, but they asked for concessions on the back end. So these are the things taken into consideration. That's why the concessions number in the MLS, seller paid concessions to the buyer, and also the list price to sale price retention is such an important set of numbers for buyers, sellers, listers, and for you to know when you go out and have a conversation with a client. So those are the numbers for the month of October. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. Always here to help you out. So talk to you soon. Have a good day.